Question is that the bill be now read a second time. Ms. Sylvia Lim.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to speak on the Parliamentary Elections Amendment Bill. I will cover three aspects. First, enabling more Singaporeans to vote. Second, on the counting of votes. And third, on election advertising. My party colleague Gerald Giam will speak later on voting by persons with disability and seek some other clarifications. First, enabling more Singaporeans to vote. The Workers' Party is in support of enabling more Singaporeans to exercise their right to vote at national elections. In principle, we welcome the changes to enable more Singaporeans overseas and those in nursing homes to cast their votes. As far as overseas voters are concerned, the Workers' Party supports the implementation of postal voting to enable more Singaporeans abroad to vote. The current scheme of requiring overseas voters to physically turn up at only 10 polling stations in 6 countries severely limits the ability of overseas Singaporeans to vote. Under the bill, overseas Singaporeans can vote from presumably any country with postal connections with Singapore. This is a positive development. It has the potential of empowering many more overseas Singaporeans to have their say in our national elections. As far as nursing homes are concerned, this will enable those who need residential nursing care to participate in elections. The bill provides for special polling stations and for mobile teams to be deployed at nursing home premises to facilitate this. It is envisaged that the mobile teams may issue and collect ballot papers by the bed. I'm aware that this is implemented elsewhere, such as in the United States. I have a few clarifications concerning the proposed arrangements at nursing homes. Under the proposed Section 47A, the returning officer will decide whether to include a particular nursing home for special polling arrangements, depending on the likelihood of a significant number of electors who are residing there and who are unable to travel out to the ordinary polling stations, but are still able to vote within the nursing home. Earlier, the Minister clarified that for a start, nursing homes with more than 50 residents will be considered to pilot, if you like, this nursing home voting at the coming presidential election. My question here is, how will the ELD determine whether voters in the nursing homes have the necessary mental capacity to cast their votes? Will the ELD, for example, start gathering data from these nursing homes well ahead of the elections, including categorizing the residents to determine who are mentally well enough to exercise their vote independently? Will the nursing home pre-screen those who have dementia or Alzheimer's, or will it be left to the mobile teams to do this assessment at the point of voting? So we should also ask how the integrity of the voting process by the bed will be ensured. There is a need for assurance to nursing home residents that their vote is secret and should be freely exercised. This is particularly important as, unlike other seniors, residents of nursing homes are more frail and dependent on the care they receive, often at subsidized rates. Some residents may worry about the consequences of their vote. Their fears may be irrational, but I believe assurances to them about the secrecy and freeness of their vote are critical. What measures will be taken in this regard? On a related note, it is stated by the proposed Section 47A4 that voting at such special polling stations should be conducted as far as possible in the same manner as that in an ordinary polling station. I note, for instance, that at an ordinary polling station, there is some randomness in the allocation of the ballot paper and also privacy at the time the vote is marked and cast. How will this be assured at the nursing homes, especially when mobile teams go to the voters' bedsides? I would also like the Minister's confirmation that polling agents from political parties will be admitted to these nursing homes to safeguard the voting process, similar to ordinary polling stations. Next, on the counting of votes. Clause 21 expands the methods of vote counting. The proposed Section 49(4)A states that counting may be done manually or by mechanical or electronic means. What is meant by electronic means? Clause 2 will define electronic means as using an electronic service, and electronic service is in turn defined to mean services that allow end users to access content or receive content, including a social media service. Potentially, this is a grave and far-reaching amendment as it contemplates votes being counted using electronic services which are online. In the ELD's media release on this bill, issued on 6 February, there is nothing mentioned about this change at all. There is some concern that the use of online services to count votes potentially exposes the vote counting process to hacking and glitches. According to the explanatory statement to the bill, the intention of Clause 21 is to simply enable the use of counting machines as part of the counting process. During the last general election in 2020, standalone machines were used for vote counting. At that time, the ELD was at pains to emphasize that the counting machines were not connected to the internet and that there were also other safeguards, such as repeating the counting process using different machines. Clause 21 appears to contemplate that the counting machines would be connected to the internet. If so, this raises concerns about the security and integrity of the counting process. How will counting agents be able to audit the counting process? So, as vote counting determines the outcome of elections, the transparency and auditability of counting should not be compromised. Finally, on election advertising. I move on to the amendments relating to election advertising. By Clause 30, this bill introduces numerous provisions which the ELD says is to increase the transparency and accountability to voters and to enhance traceability of communications of election advertising. This will impose additional requirements on candidates and political parties. Currently, Section 61(1)(c) of the Act simply requires election advertising to include the names of the publisher and printer. This bill significantly enhances those obligations on election advertising to include the identities of various other persons. To appreciate what these new requirements will entail, I will refer to the examples given in the explanatory statement to the bill. For instance, for printed handbills containing a slogan, candidates and parties will be further required to include the identity particulars of the election agent of the candidate and the candidate's senior campaign staff who approve the content of the slogan. In another example, if a party engages a marketing firm to run its election campaign, the identity of the marketing firm will have to be stated in various situations. So I would like the Minister to clarify why the identities of campaign staff and the marketing firms will be required to be published. In the case of campaign staff working on campaign slogans, it is useful to take a typical scenario for clarification. If staff brainstorm on a slogan and the final approval of the slogan is given by the candidate or the party, I would assume that there would be no need to name the staff involved. After all, campaign staff helping political parties ultimately take instructions from the party leadership. As for marketing firms, they are commercial entities who take on briefs for reward. Such firms can have multiple clients from different political parties over time. So for all election advertising, I believe the buck stops at the candidate and the political party. They are responsible for the content put out and will be held liable for its contents. Is this not sufficient for accountability? In relation to traditional election advertising, the new Section 61G will require that banners, flags, and posters will only be allowed to be displayed in permissible locations. It is stated in the explanatory statement to the bill that there will be a positive list of permissible locations. Could the Minister clarify what practical difference this will make compared to past elections? What assurance will candidates and parties have that there will be adequate space in prime locations for all participants? So before I end, I wish to make an observation about the process leading up to this bill. Last year, the ELD reached out to political parties on the proposal to expand voting to include postal voting and voting at nursing homes. This was a welcome and useful process. However, there was no consultation or prior information about the changes to election advertising, which are the provisions that impact the work of political parties most directly. Looking at the bill, these changes to election advertising are very detailed and must have been under consideration for quite some time. Yet the changes were announced just a month ago, just before the budget statement and Committee of Supply debates, which just concluded a few moments ago after 70 hours. So the timing of the second reading debate on this important bill may account for the few speakers we see listed today, just two of us from Workers' Party and, of course, MP Louis Ng. Is this ideal? So all in all, the provisions of this bill have the potential to enhance our election process, especially those that enable more Singaporeans to cast their votes, either in nursing homes or overseas via postal voting. However, I would like further elaboration on the changes to the counting of votes and election advertising requirements. Finally, for the avoidance of doubt, I should clarify the Workers' Party's position on the Presidential Elections Amendment Bill. The Workers' Party maintains its position on being opposed to the office of the elected president. The reasons for this position have been canvassed over the decades since the 1980s, and I do not intend to repeat them. As such, we are not speaking on that bill and will vote to abstain then. Thank you.